Hey guys, this is Aragon. I just recently caught up with Monster Hunter WoW content. Now that the base game is finished, and detail about the upcoming expansion is likely to be revealed on the Summer Game Fest, which only a few days from now. I feel like this is a good time to talk about one of my main weapons in Monster Hunter, the Longsword. Before writing the script for this video, I wanted to have a fresh reminder of how Longsword works in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter WoW. At the same time, I wanted to push myself to see how deeply I understand my main weapons, to make sure I actually know what I'm about to discuss. So I went ahead and did this. After playing both Monster Hunter World and WoW side by side extensively, I think WoW's ruined my main weapon by eliminating almost every vulnerability and commitment inside Longsword's moveset, turning Longsword from a balanced, though imperfect but thoughtful weapon back in Monster Hunter World into a mess where the most optimal method is spamming certain moves over and over again. For context, World was my first ever Monster Hunter game, so I only have 2 games as a source of reference. This video will only compare the Longsword between Monster Hunter World and WoW. I am also aware that World's version of Longsword has already changed its identity a lot as a weapon compared to older generations. For that matter though, I think I will discuss in a separate video. I started playing for Ultimate recently, getting through high rank, but I don't think that's enough to fully understand the game or the Longsword. And the more I play for you, the more I wanted to dedicate a whole video for it, because the game was amazing. I think 4U has the best low rank experience for me so far, but back to the topic. Lastly, to keep this video from being too long, I will assume that you guys already had an idea about Longsword and its mechanic in Monster Hunter World and WoW, so I won't do a full weapon breakdown, but only provide details where necessary to explain my opinion. With all that in mind, let's start complaining, shall we? The first problem I have with WoW Longsword is spirit gauge management, or more specifically, the lack of it. Leveling up the spirit gauge is one of the core aspects of playing Longsword. That's where you deal the most damage and can pull out your strongest moves. In World, you have only one attack that can level it up, which is the Spirit Round Slash. You have 2 ways to get there. Successfully counter a monster attack with Foresight Slash that leads straight into a Spirit Round Slash, or if the monster are distracted or being knocked down, you can perform a Spirit combo from Spirit Blade 1, 2, 3, and then Spirit Round Slash. In order to do this combo, however, you need a sufficient amount of Spirit Gauge, and you won't be able to do the next Spirit Blade or Spirit Round Slash if you don't have enough. This is the first part that makes Longsword fun to use. Having to estimate the minimum amount or how much more would I need so that I can get to the Spirit Round Slash and level up the Spirit Gauge, all in the middle of combat. Unfortunately, Monster Hunter WoW trivialized this thought process by introducing the Spirit Charge. Spirit Charge let you hold the Spirit input to skip some or all Spirit Blade attacks straight to the Spirit Round Slash, depending how long you hold it. It's also very flexible. You can do a Spirit Blade 1, hold the charge, then let it go right away to get to Spirit Blade 2, do the same thing to get to Spirit Blade 3, and then Spirit Round Slash. As you notice, the Spirit Charge doesn't require any Spirit Gauge to perform. In fact, it even gains Spirit Gauge for you. Combined with its flexibility that we just discussed, you no longer need any Spirit Gauge management. You can do any Spirit Blade attacks at any time as you wish. There is no punishment whatsoever for not having enough Spirit Gauge. You will always be able to reach Spirit Round Slash. we might as well only keep the spirit level and remove the gauge altogether, since there is no need for it anymore. My second problem with the WoW Longsword is the lack of restriction and commitment. One of the reasons I fell in love with Longsword in Monster Hunter World was the moment-to-moment quick decision making. That decision making was required because in World, Longsword has a moveset with multiple vulnerable spots, where you are locked committing to a long animation and left exposed to monster attacks, with limited options to get yourself out of harm. But if you want to finish your combo or level up spirit gauge, you will have to go through these commitments eventually. Part of what makes a good longsword user is knowing what your vulnerable spots are, then try to delay or only expose them when you're safe. Let's look at the Spirit combo in Monster Hunter World again. Spirit Blade 3 and Spirit Round Slash were two examples of being a vulnerable spot. Spirit Blade 3 has a very long animation. Once started, you must commit to the whole attack and can only foresight after that. While Spirit Round Slash is faster, it has a long recovering animation where your character is forced to put the sword on their back until you do an overhead slash or Spirit Blade 1. Your best and only other option is usually going straight to Special Sheet, where you can counter with EI Spirit Slash or do a normal EI Slash. But going into Special Sheet is another commitment. The animation takes some time, and if the monster is about to attack, you better off just end with a Spirit Round Slash so that you can dodge or run away. Due to the high commitment and high risk nature of Spirit Blade 3 and Round Slash, a lot of time you want to delay going to this attack. You don't want to be stuck in Spirit Blade 3 or Round Slash animation when the monster is about to attack, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your place in the Spirit combo because the monster might not attack. In World, you have two options. Interweaving one normal attack after Spirit Blade 1 and 2, the other option is to let each Spirit Blade lingers for a split second before going to the next one in the combo. Using one or both options can extend the time before having to commit to Spirit Blade 3 and Round Slash, where you can make decisions to counter with Foresight or go into a Special Sheet or finishing the Spirit combo. The key point here is, both options have their own limit. You can't let each Spirit Blade linger forever. You can only interweave one single normal attack after Spirit Blade 1 and 2. After that, you either have to commit to a Spirit Blade 3 or stop the combo and reset. You also cannot interweave normal attacks after Spirit Blade 3 and Round Slash. This restriction is to prevent you from sitting there passively fishing for a counter opportunity while comfortably holding your place in the Spirit combo. The options are there to help you buy some time, not to give you unlimited window to level up the Spirit gauge. This is fun for me. Restriction and commitment force you to constantly assess the situation and quickly make decisions to adapt. You can feel your longsword skill as well as knowledge on the monster increase with each optimal decision you make. Again, Monster Hunter World trivialized this aspect by removing almost every pain point of the previous version as well as adding more safeguards to them. First, the heavy commitment of Spirit Blade 3 is gone. Now you can Foresight Slash right after the first two hits, cutting 30 to 40% of animation commitment, making Spirit Blade 3 as safe as the first two. The restriction after a Spirit Round Slash is gone too. Aside from going into a Special Sheet, now you can Spirit Thrust into Hellbreaker, you can Overhead Slash, you can even do a quick thrust to immediately go into Foresight Slash if you wanted to. Remember what I said about the Spirit Blade 3 and Round Slash being high commitment and vulnerable spot that you have to work around? It's gone now. Wilds also allow you to use normal attack between every Spirit Blade. Not only that, now you can do an infinite amount of normal attack and still keep your place in the Spirit combo, allowing the very thing that was previously prevented in World. You can comfortably, passively fish for a counter window to the end of the world. You don't need to be mindful about your vulnerability since you hardly have any left. You don't need to delay your Spirit combo, you don't need anything. Oh, I sound exactly like Ratatoska there. This next example of the lack of commitment in WoW is interesting, because it might not be intentional by the developer. But now, after WoW has finished their update cycle and this thing still exists in the game, I have to mention it. Remember earlier when I talked about the Spirit Charge? There's a technique born from it. called Spirit Charge Cancel. This is an unofficial trick where after an attack, you hold the spirit input to start the spirit charge, then immediately follow up with some specific input that will cancel the animation and jump straight to that input instead. Those inputs are Spirit Blade 2, Special Sheet, and the most broken one, Foresight Slash. Yes, you can literally cancel any lingering animation into a Foresight Slash. And since this technique starts with a spirit charge, you gain spirit gauge, which means you have full iframe and benefits of a normal Foresight Slash. Now imagine if you fail an EI Spirit Slash. You will be locked in a long recovering animation and unable to do anything. But with this technique, you can cancel it into Foresight Slash if the monster is about to attack you. For some rare cases, this technique is used even after a successful EI Slash. If the monster is doing a fast, dangerous combo that you don't even have time to do a quick attack after EI Spirit Slash, like this situation here with a Tempered Seragio. Needless to say, this technique is absolutely broken. Being stuck with a long recovering animation after failing an EI Spirit Slash is one of the few vulnerable spots that still exists, but the Spirit Charge Cancel negates even that. Now to be fair, this is not official and might not be intended by the developers, so not many Longsword users even know about it in the first place. But even if they knew, this technique requires quick and somewhat precise input to pull off. So outside of speedrunner and very good Longsword players, not many users can reliably utilize Spirit Charge Cancel in real situation. But in the end, it's still one of many things that diminish the limitation and commitment Longsword used to have. Now we come to the third problem with the current Longsword. I think this is the biggest issue with the weapon, and it should be on top priority of what needed to be fixed for the upcoming expansion. The issue that I'm about to discuss is the current boring meta of Longsword, where you spam a certain move over everything else in nearly every situation. The first half of this issue is EI Spirit Slash. The Longsword in Monster Hunter World has two counters that serve a different purpose and they complement each other. Foresight Slash was a faster, reactive counter. A successful Foresight also leads straight into the Spirit Round Slash, so the Foresight is a shortcut to level up your Spirit gauge. EI Spirit Slash on the other hand was a stronger, slower, predictive counter. Although I personally like how it was balanced in World, there was a flaw. The EI Spirit Slash was objectively too punishing for the reward of just dealing good damage. It doesn't gain you any spirit level, it even drops you down a level if failed. The iframe window is very tight. EI Spirit Slash too soon will drop one spirit gauge level, significantly reduce the damage, while doing it too late will leave you wide open to take full damage from a monster attack. On top of that, the only attack you can follow even after a successful EI Spirit Slash was Spirit Thrust into Helmbreaker. Otherwise, you have a massive recovering animation no matter if you missed the iframe timing or not. EI Spirit Slash is still very strong if you understand monster behavior and use it at the right time, but the high punishment and the sheer amount of practice to effectively use it, in the end, discourage a lot of Longsword players from even trying. Instead, they just use Foresight Slash while waiting for a safe window to use Helmbreaker, rather than risk losing one spirit level for nothing. So in later titles, and now Monster Hunter Wilds, the devs made some change to EI Spirit Slash. Successfully countering with it can now gain a spirit level and failing it no longer drop 1. Secondly, a successful EI Spirit Slash can now be followed with 3 moves, a Spirit Blade 3 and then Round Slash, a normal slash or Crimson Slash if you're on red gauge, and the strongest of all 3, it lets you go into a Special Sheet, able to do another EI Spirit Slash, so you can chain multiple EI Spirit Slash after each successful one. The last thing that they changed was buffing the Quick Sheet skill. In World, the effect gained by Quick Sheet is very minimal. In Rise, they gave it an insane buff, reducing the sheeting animation time by half. Now in Wilds, they tuned it down to around 20% reduction, but still a significant improvement compared to World. All these buffs to EI Spirit Slash unfortunately push things too far to the opposite direction. Now compared to the Foresight Slash, the EI Spirit Slash has too many benefits, with almost no drawback. Every role Foresight used to have, EI Spirit Slash can do it better. The fact that late and endgame monsters are more aggressive, faster, and attack in longer combo only further benefit the AI Spirit Slash. Once you understand the monster enough, the best actions will always be repeating AI Spirit Slash, while Foresight was pushed aside only used as a backup plan. The only risk of AI Spirit Slash now is when you miss the counter timing, get locked in the recovering animation and leave yourself wide open. But wait, remember the Spirit's Charge cancel technique that I mentioned earlier? When you can cancel this whole animation to follow straight to the Foresight or another special sheet? Yeah, if you're skilled enough, this risk is irrelevant as well. All this, in my opinion, break the delicate balance between two counters we have back in Monster Hunter World. Let me show you an example. Here Zinogre is about to do it double Thunder Slam. If I EI Spirit Slash the first slam, the long recovery animation left me exposed and took heavy damage. I could do a back-to-back Foresight like this. It was okay, but not optimal. Since I was already in red gauge, I don't need to level it up. The best move here is to Foresight into a special sheet and AI Spirit Slash the second slam. You deal good damage while remaining safe. Now if that situation happens again, but I was not in red gauge, then the back-to-back Foresights become the optimal choice since it helped me get to red gauge. Doing AI Spirit Slash there would leave me in yellow gauge, thus reduce my potential damage. This is the delicate balance that I talked about. There is no single definitive choice for every situation. Making decision quickly, choosing the right counter, and be rewarded is how Longsword should be played. Now imagine this same kind of attack in WoW. There won't be any dynamic decision making here at all. The best answer will always be EI Spirit Slash follow up with another EI Spirit Slash. Unless the attack caught you unprepared, it doesn't matter if I'm in yellow or red gauge, the optimal solution will always be the same. And for me, that's so boring. I don't deny that EI Spirit Slash was too punishing in World, but still, it remained a powerful tool, a skill ceiling that increased the damage output of anyone willing to put time and effort mastering it. A good longsword user in World will use both counters to achieve maximum efficiency. In Monster Hunter Wilds, however, a good longsword user will use EI Spirit Slash 99% of the time and only use Foresight in some rare specific scenario, since EI Spirit Slash is vastly superior in almost every single way. So far, everything we discussed about EI Spirit Slash is only half the problem. The other half is the newly added Crimson attacks once you're in red gauge. One of the main criticisms about Longsword back in Monster Hunter World was the lack of reason to stay in red spirit gauge. Pretty much the only thing you want to do as soon as possible is finding an opening to drop the Helmbreaker, then get back to red gauge and repeat. Even compared to AI Spirit Slash, using Helmbreaker as much as possible still provide better damage output, unless against some specific monster using Frostgrab build. But these cases are far and few between. To avoid this, Monster Hunter Wilds introduced a new attack moveset called Crimson Slash. It replaces your normal overhead slash with Crimson Slash 1, 2, and 3. The Foresight Slash was also changed to Foresight World Slash, which is stronger and faster than the regular Foresight. In theory, this should be great changes to the Longsword moveset, where you're actually encouraged to stay and deal damage while in the red gauge. Looking at Crimson Slash 2 and 3, they have high damage but also high animation commitment, which is great. More decisions to be made. The Foresight upgrade in red gauge helped closing the power gap with AI Spirit Slash as well. But these new changes gave birth to something unexpected. The meta of spamming Crimson Slash 1 and Spirit Blade 1, which look like this. I will present some main reason why this became the meta. The first reason is, of course, damage output. Even though Helmbreaker plus Spirit Release has higher DPS, you cannot spam it, since it drops 2 Spirit Gauge level every time you use, meaning you have to get the level back before you can do it again. Meanwhile, Crimson Slash 1 and Spirit Blade 1 combo can be chained repeatedly as long as you are in red gauge. And even after dropping out of red, it's much easier to go back with AI Spirit Slash or Focus Strike on a wound. The second reason is the consistency and precision this combo gives you. You can easily aim and adjust to always hit the monster weak spot, while Spirit Release have the damage to spread out, making it less optimal in comparison. The third reason is mobility and commitment. You can use directional input to quickly change your position while doing this combo. As you can see in the footage, you can go forward, backward, as well as side to side, all while you are constantly hitting the monster. On top of that, both attacks in this combo are fast with little to zero animation commitment, meaning you can spam this combo whenever you want and still have the time to react, or counter anything the monster was throwing at you. With all that benefit, we have a simple, flexible, high damage, low commitment combo that excels in almost every scenario with zero risk. And when you combine this combo with the EI Spirit Slash, you officially have the current Longsword meta, where you use EI Spirit Slash whenever the monster is attacking, and then spam the Crimson Slash 1 Spirit Blade 1 combo when the monster is not. This spamming meta is so bad that it made everything I discussed on the previous 2 chapters meaningless. Because not only this meta ruined everything I like about the Longsword in Monster Hunter World, it's also betrayed the whole Monster Hunter concept about weapon design completely. Why in a game from a series that was famous for its nuanced, thoughtful weapon moveset and the interplay between different attacks also contain a simple button smashing combo that is extremely viable if not completely meta? Why? Now, to be fair, the developer was aware of this problem after launch. They implement changes back in Title Update 2 that directly nerfed Crimson Slash 1 and buffed other moves, but in the end it was not enough, since that meta combo still reigns supreme until this day, and no more meaningful changes was added after that, which I struggle to understand the reason. I do have one more issue with the weapon, which is the focus mode. But this is not a specific issue with Longsword, and it will require a whole separate video to solely discuss the matter, so I will only mention it briefly here. Focus mode further enhances every problem I said throughout this whole video, except Spirit Gate management. You have even less commitment now, since you can just use focus mode to adjust your attack angle conveniently. Focus mode buffs EI Spirit Slash to be even more powerful when you can freely turn around and aim so that EI Spirit Slash always hit the monster weak spot, no matter what your initial direction was. Lastly, focus mode made Crimson Slash 1 plus Spirit Blade 1 combo become ridiculous, when you can free aim the combo on top of being able to change position with directional input, as if the combo was not broken enough or something. At this point, you guys are tired of me complaining non-stop, and I don't think complaining just for the sake of complaining is a good way to provide feedback. So I want to discuss some potential solutions that might help fixing my favorite weapon. The first question is, if I love the Longsword in Monster Hunter World so much, should Monster Hunter World just copy that exact same version? And my answer is no. The Longsword in World had its own issues, and monsters in both games behave so differently that simply copying World would have created even more problems. What I want is to keep the Longsword philosophy from Monster Hunter World. I want an aggressive weapon that forces me to make quick decisions from moment to moment in combat, based on a varied but thoughtful moveset where each of its moves have its own purpose that complement each other. And when I made a good decision, I should be rewarded. To achieve that, first off and most importantly, we need to get rid of the current meta of spamming Crimson Slash 1 Spirit Blade 1 in Red Gauge. It is too safe, too flexible, and too effective. A low commitment combo like that should have the worst DPS compared to other higher commitment options. This one is actually not that hard to fix. The devs have already done it in Title Update 2. The issue was that the buff and nerf was not enough. We need to have these same changes again, further nerf the combo and buff all the Crimson Slash attack, especially Crimson Slash 3 when it has high animation commitment. So instead of having one combo as the go-to choice every time, we have a new dynamic moveset in Red Gauge where you make decision of using high or low commitment attack depending on where you are and what the monster is doing. The next thing that needed to address is the AI EI Spirit Slash. And again, I don't need it to go back to how it worked in World. Back then it was too punishing with not enough reward. You also have no options outside of Helmbreaker to follow up, even after succeeding. It contradicts the decision-making aspect that I want, since there was no decision to be made. All the changes they made for the EI Spirit Slash in Rise and now Wild, in idea and concept I think they're good, giving the player more option to adapt to whatever the monster is doing. Being able to gain spirit level also give player more incentive to use it. In WoW, they even nerfed the effectiveness of Quick Sheet, prevented the EI Spirit Slash to become a purely reactive counter. The problem appears when we compare EI Spirit Slash with Foresight. It is simply too powerful, it even steals Foresight's role of leveling up Spirit Gauge. So I want to restore the delicate balance between them like back in Monster Hunter World. To solve this issue, I want to do two things. One, I want to bring back one mechanic from Monster Hunter World, which is the consequence of losing a spirit level if you fail the EI Spirit Slash. In the current stage, it has almost no risk. You can counter too early and still keep your spirit level, with the ability to do a spirit charge cancel to get rid of any animation lock. Even in the worst case, you counter too late and get hit by the monster, you can just call your sacred to get you out of trouble. EI Spirit Slash is your biggest counter, your shortcut to level up Spirit Gauge, so it should have a real cost for doing it badly. This way it creates a clear incentive to prioritize using Foresight and not use EI Spirit Slash carelessly when you're learning the weapon or figuring out the counter timing against a monster. But I admit this solution is not perfect, since once I understand the monster, I will just go back to using EI Spirit Slash over Foresight. That's why the other thing that I want to do is to buff Foresight Slash. Now this one I struggle a little bit, since I don't have a good idea how to improve it. If you guys have any idea with the Foresight Slash, please let me know in the comment section. A few solutions that I could think of are either speed up the Foresight animation or rework the Foresight Slash entirely with new animation. As things are now, the Foresight is too slow, too cumbersome compared to EI Spirit Slash. I even think about simply increasing the damage at one point. But that won't be a good solution, since the issue with Foresight is not just about the damage, and buffing Longsword too much might affect the balance between Longsword and the other 13 weapons. And the last thing that I want is to give all Longsword haters out there more reasons to target my weapon again. For the Spirit combo, I think we should not be able to attack infinitely between each Spirit Blade. It should be limited to one only after Spirit Blade 1, 2 and 3. It is a good middle ground, more than we had in World, but not as silly as it is now. Additionally, I don't think you should be able to Foresight or go into Special Sheet after the first 2 attacks of the Spirit Blade 3. It should remain one of your vulnerable spots, so you don't just use it carelessly. For the ability to do more things after a Spirit Round Slash, I mostly think they're good changes. Back in World, you pretty much have only one option after a Round Slash, which is to go into Special Sheet. It contradicts my ideal longsword of making good decisions quickly. The other option, to let the Round Slash animation end, was okay in World, but with the faster pace of combat in Wild, that animation becomes too long. So I want to keep these changes with one exception, which is the quick thrust attack. The idea of Round Slash being one of your vulnerable spots should stay, and being able to do a quick thrust to Foresight right after remove that vulnerability. About the Spirit Charge, I don't like it, but I know why it's here. Sometime in a group hunt, the longsword user might be in a scenario where you were in the middle of your spirit combo, but the monster decided to switch target and move away. Back in World, you have to reset, build up the spirit gauge, and start your spirit combo again. It was part of the reason that made longsword one of the less optimal weapons to co-op with friends, well, outside of tripping people. Now you have an option to hold the spirit charge while slowly moving toward the monster, then release it to finish your spirit combo. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. The thing that I want to remove though is the ability to hold the spirit charge after each spirit blade, then release it and skip to the next hit in the spirit combo without having enough spirit gauge. It ruined the importance of spirit gauge management as we discussed. So you should be able to charge, but your only option is to charge it all the way to Spirit Round Slash. If you release it too soon, it will do nothing. In return, the charge animation should be speed up, not as fast as the open beta, but faster than the current version. That way it solves the awkward situation in a group hunt without trivializing spirit gauge management. Now you have a long charging animation to commit to, which forces you to think twice and only do it if you're safe. The spirit charge cancel, however, should be removed. The technique is cool and requires some skill to use, but in concept it does more harm than good. I want my longsword moveset to be fair, thoughtful, and punishing if you made the wrong choice. This technique though goes against that. The final issue to solve is the Helmbreaker and Spirit Release. The main thing that I want to tackle is its place in the current longsword meta. As I mentioned earlier, one of the main criticisms of longsword back in Monster Hunter World was the lack of incentives to stay in red gauge. Instead, we use Helmbreaker as soon as possible. To change that, in WoW, they introduced the Crimson attacks, but it created a spamming meta with Crimson/1 and Spirit Blade 1. Pushed things too far to the opposite direction. So the goal is to give player incentive to actually consider using Helmbreaker without buffing it too much so it could avoid the issue back in Monster Hunter World. While searching for solutions, I accidentally came across an idea from a Reddit user, Beef the Rumpus. Basically, you give Helmbreaker a damage scaling, depends on how low the red gauge is. At full gauge, the damage is not good, but as the gauge decreases further and further, Helmbreaker damage actually increases accordingly, and reach the highest damage when the red gauge is on, for example, 20% or less. I actually love this idea. Both make sure that the issue in Monster Hunter World will not return, while encourage player to end the red gauge with Helmbreaker and Spirit Release, instead of just spamming Crimson attacks until the red gauge depleted completely. Red gauge is a limited resource in Monster Hunter Wild, and it will run out eventually no matter what you do, so this idea fits perfectly. At the same time, I think it created a very interesting decision-making process in combat. As the red gauge runs low, do you want to use Helmbreaker? Is the gauge low enough to get the maximum damage from it? Does the monster actually give you a big enough opening to use it? The potential for interesting gameplay is very much there. The only thing left is proper balancing. And yeah, that's all my thoughts about the current longsword in Monster Hunter Wild, and my recommendation as well as some fantastic idea from the community on how to fix the weapon. I want this video to be a gathering point of fellow longsword users that was unsatisfied with the weapon in base game, and I hope that the end of this video can also be the start of many more healthy conversation. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you soon, hopefully.